Tonight, final preparations for a state funeral. The nation gets ready to say goodbye to Queen Elizabeth as thousands head to London ahead of her state funeral on Monday.
It's amazing to be here and see the atmosphere, the emotions that are in the crowd is all really, really strong. It just shows how loved the Queen really, really was throughout the nation.
Back in Scotland, concern over the impact of closures as a mark of respect. Shops, schools, GP surgeries and even some food banks are among those which will shut.
Also making the headlines, Scotland's largest teaching union votes overwhelmingly to back strike action.
And we look back at Her Majesty's love of corgis and find out why they really are companions fit for a queen.
I'm John McRae in Glasgow.
And I'm Emma Cameron in Edinburgh. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. Final preparations are underway this evening ahead of Queen Elizabeth's funeral on Monday. While large parts of the country will close down, some British Legion branches, cinemas and churches are among the places which will open their doors as people gather to pay their last respects to the late monarch.
The service at Westminster Abbey will also be live streamed from screens at Holyrood Park in Edinburgh. In London, rehearsals will continue throughout the weekend for the funeral, which is expected to be watched by millions around the globe. Louise Hosey reports.
The flag continues to fly at half-mast at this branch of the Royal British Legion. It's a scene replicated across the country. Inside, its members are busy planning for Monday. They'll be open to anyone who wants to come and watch the funeral of their sovereign and patron.
A lot of our members are ex-servicemen, of course, and they would want to come in, to show their appreciation of everything that is done over a long reign. We're hoping that we can get a few people in just to chat among each other and bring a community, make it a community thing.
Some churches will also be opening their doors. This one has a capacity of over 200.
I think one of the things that's really important for me is that if even one person wants to come and be alongside others, that we're able to do that. It's about providing a space for anybody who wants to come.
Collective grief relieves the burden of individual grief. So we believe that when we gather together and grieve together and watch the service, we're able to support each other through the season we're in.
On Sunday, screens will be put up at Holyrood Park in Edinburgh so the funeral can be live streamed. A large turnout's expected the following day.
Given the number of people we've seen taking time to pay their respects at St Giles just across the road behind me here, potentially thousands of people will make their way down to the park, so of course we'll encourage people to get down early. The screens will be there from I think 8 in the morning until 5. The funeral will take place at 11 o'clock in London, so we encourage people to get there early, get some space and enjoy the day.
The Queen's life and legacy will also be marked at this Aberdeen mosque.
We have children classes where we can ask children to speak about their reflections and their feelings and talk to the teachers about the Queen and her achievements. She was the bridge of peace and tolerance and harmony in UK.
Today, as King Charles III and the Queen Consort visited Cardiff, in London people continue to queue in their masses to see the Queen lying in state. Stretching at least 5 miles long, today the queue reached capacity and had to be paused for new joiners. Tomorrow, the Queen's grandchildren, including the Prince of Wales and Prince Harry, will stand vigil beside her coffin at Westminster Hall. Louise Hosey, STV News.
Well, in London, the crowds continue to gather. The queue to see the Queen lying in state was closed earlier due to the sheer volume of people. Kevin Ashford is there for us. Kevin.
It has been nothing short of remarkable, I have to say, from watching the first people begin to queue even before the lying in state had begun, seeing that queue extend rapidly to the situation, as you mentioned today, where the whole system had to be paused because it had reached full capacity, and then the situation of people queuing to join the queue. The queue itself, I reckon, is anything up to 7 miles long. It's hard to be precise because it does snake a lot. But the people at the back I spoke to in Southwark Park were totally unperturbed at the prospect of having to queue for anything up to 12 hours before they could get their chance to pay their respects. Now, looking after people along that queuing route are more than 1,000 volunteers and stewards, including 2 scouts from Scotland, Emma Morrison from Elgin and Neve Anderson from Glenrothes.
You're not allowed to take in any food or water, so we've been kind of taking that in, giving it away to food banks, things like that. So everything's been reused and going out to the homeless within London and within the community, and it's been really, really nice as well, just to speak to different people and hear their stories and how long they've been waiting, things like that.
Queen was, obviously, she was the patron for Scouting, and she meant a lot to a lot of different people, and it's just, it felt like it was kind of, I needed to do it, or else I wasn't keeping my promise.
So, Kevin, what happens over the next few days?
Well, the last mourners have to have filed past the Queen's coffin by 6:30 on Monday morning because that is the day of the funeral. That service will begin at Westminster Abbey at 11 o'clock, just a short distance from here. 2,000 mourners, including world leaders and heads of state, followed by a 2-minute silence, and then the Queen's coffin will be taken in a procession to Windsor, where she'll be laid to rest. And it's estimated that by Monday evening, anything up to 1 million people will have come to London to witness these moments in history.
Kevin in London, thank you. The day of the Queen's funeral has been designated as a bank holiday, with many shops, services and businesses closing their doors on Monday as a mark of respect. Schools, nurseries and GP surgeries will all be affected.
Supermarkets will either shut for the whole day or operate reduced hours. A number of food banks have also chosen not to open, prompting criticism. Our chief reporter Sharon Frew has more on the impact on people's daily lives.
Clearing up after a busy day, this Glasgow food bank has been making sure all the people referred to them have the supplies they need before Monday. The closure of these vital services on the day of the Queen's funeral has come under some scrutiny. Staff here say it's standard practice for them to shut on bank holidays when the majority of their referral organisations are also closed.
Food banks are small charities and therefore are under no obligation to be open on any set day at all. But I think people have to look at things like doctor surgeries are closed, schools are closed, the benefit agency, who realistically have caused most of this problem with the government, are closed. So why would people expect us to be open?
A bank holiday at short notice has led to frantic planning for many public services. NHS boards have been told to make sure essential care continues. Pre-planned treatments and winter vaccination programmes are expected to go ahead as normal. Some big high street names will close their doors for the entire day. Others, including some supermarkets, have altered their opening hours for the duration of the funeral service.
I think it's got a big impact on businesses, but yet our Queen has had 70 years of reigning. She's a tremendous lady. I think it's a good thing.
Business as usual. Yeah, definitely, because it's been more than a week, hasn't it?
I think it is inconvenient because it's obviously sad that the Queen has passed away, but we don't personally know her, and food bags that people need food.
In this clothing shop, all the designs are created by someone who has been or is homeless. It says it's had a massive response after announcing plans to host a temporary food bank on Monday.
Poverty doesn't stop because, the nation's in mourning, so for us it was about trying to help out in any way we could, and it's just been brilliant. It's great that it seems like it's a community that's came together.
Meeting the Queen in 2018 is a cherished memory for Raj Bajwi. He dedicated the MBE he was given that day to his late mother. The restaurants in the group he works for plan to close or amend their opening hours on Monday as a mark of respect.
When she shook my hand to finish the conversation off, and she looked into my eyes and she said, "I'm sure your mother will be looking down." Believe me, I held on to myself very tightly, but I went further down and the tears fell down, Officially, when I heard her passing, my heart shattered into a million pieces.
A national moment of reflection will take place at 8 p.m. on Sunday, the night before the state funeral. It will be marked by a 1-minute silence across the UK. Sharon Frew, STV News.
Well, after Monday, all eyes will be on our new king. It's often said he's never happier than when he's either in a kilt or walking in the gardens of the Birkhall estate on Deeside.
In recent years, Charles has spent a lot of his time in Scotland and has had a close affinity with the country for much of his life. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
When the young Charles came here, he was the first member of the royal family to be sent to school. He lived in Windmill Lodge. The bedroom he once occupied is still in use and still furnished with his old bureau and chest of drawers. And while he's been on record that his school days were not necessarily the happiest of his life, they did shape large parts of his interests and outlook.
When you get under the skin of what really went on for Charles, how much he learned as a pupil at Gordonstoun, it's really clear to see how that has been such a positive and strong influence on his life.
Those activities included a love of music and the outdoors, like being part of the school Coast Guard, something which still operates here today. He was the man born to be king, but comes to the throne later in a life spent in the public eye.
My wife and I are delighted to be in Scotland today to...
A strained marriage to Princess Diana, seen here at the Glasgow Garden Festival in 1988, and her subsequent death in 1997, sparked questions about the whole future of the royal family. A quarter of a century on, though, the new monarch has appeared more personally content. With Camilla at his side, he cuts a much more relaxed figure than once he did.
I think people really accept them very well now, and I think they will continue to see their sense of duty. And I don't see issues coming up at all. I think people will get right behind both of them.
In Ayrshire, the historic Dumfries House has been restored by the new King's Charitable Foundation and has played a role in creating opportunities and transforming lives. Nicole took part in a sustainable fashion course there and was impressed by His Majesty's personal interest in it.
When I spoke to him, he remembered something that I had spoke to him the first time about, so I was really quite taken back by that. They actually remembered who I was and what we had done with our careers beforehand and where we came from.
There will be huge challenges ahead for the King, the first new monarch in most of our lives. He has had a long time to think about and prepare for what now lies ahead. Gordon Cree, STV News.
To other news now, and Scotland's largest teaching union has overwhelmingly rejected a 5% pay offer and backed strike action. In a consultative ballot, the vast majority of EIS members said they would support a walkout. The union will now hold a formal vote to decide whether to go ahead with industrial action. Well, our political correspondent Ewan Petrie is with us now. And Ewan, how likely is strike action?
Well, I think it's clear from this ballot that teachers have had enough. They're angry. 94% of them who took part said that they rejected the current 5% offer that's on the table. 91% of them said they supported strike action. So teachers' verdict on the local authority group COSLA and the Scottish Government is they must do better. And if enough of them now back strike action in this formal vote, then we could be looking at schools closing down as early as November. Now, the Scottish Government has been clear that its budget is already being stretched to the absolute limits. It's having to make cuts of around £500 million because of soaring inflation and pay settlements for other public sector workers. But the EIS is pushing for a 10% pay increase.
We say that the Scottish Government can afford a fair pay settlement for Scotland's teachers. There are political choices to be made about how they do that perhaps, but we believe that they have revenue raising powers that they haven't used. We believe that they have access to budgets that they haven't yet used, and we would like to see them pull out more of the stops in order that they can settle this dispute sooner rather than later.
So Ewan, strike action by other unions was put on hold because of the Queen's death. When can we expect further walkouts?
That's right. Postal workers and the RMT both postponed strike action in the past week. Royal Mail staff are expected to walk out again at the end of the month. The RMT is involved in a separate dispute with ScotRail, and its ballot of members is due to close on Tuesday next week. And if enough of its members back strike action there, We could be looking at major disruption once again to the rail network at the start of next month. And NHS staff are also being balloted on strike action throughout October. They're looking for a similar flat rate deal that's currently being offered to local government workers. So overall, although we haven't been hearing much about it in the past week, the prospect of a winter of discontent is still very much with us.
Ewan, thank you.
A court has been hearing how Rini McRae was deeply in love with the man who's accused of murdering her and their son Andrew in 1976. Bill McDowell denies the charges. Today, the court heard how he'd been scrubbing the boot of his company car in the days after their disappearance more than 45 years ago. Nicola McCally was in court.
The High Court heard evidence today from former Detective Constable Ruth Mason in relation to statements from witnesses. Former McRae's employee Kenneth Rock, who has since died, was seen on video in court telling officers that he had been sent to the accused Bill McDowell's house to collect a car. McDowell had been sacked after his affair with Rini McRae was discovered by her former husband Gordon. Mr. Rock told police that when he had arrived, McDowell had refused to return the company car until he had cleaned it and was scrubbing out the boot of the vehicle. The jury also heard video and statement evidence from Val Steventon, who was Rini McRae's best friend. They had known each other since childhood. Val told police that Rini had been deeply in love with McDowell. She told her friend they were to move to Shetland with her sons after he got a job with an oil firm. And the weekend before the move, Rini and McDowell were going away with Andrew to a chalet in Perthshire. Valerie Steventon told officers that McDowell had insisted that Andrew go with them, saying that he wanted to get to know him well. That same weekend, Rini had told others that she was going to Kilmarnock to visit her sister Morag. When Rini's car was found burnt out, Val said she tried to contact her. She telephoned McDowell's house on the Sunday night, and when he answered the telephone, she said she felt very concerned. The court also heard that some witnesses had been interviewed by a hypnotist in the 1970s. Acting for the defence, Murray McCara KC put to Ruth Mason that when she re-interviewed them, some could not remember what they had said under hypnosis. She said she could not recall. Bill McDowell denies murdering Rini and Andrew McRae in November 1976. He has lodged special defences of alibi, saying he was elsewhere at the time and that Rini's estranged husband Gordon, along with others, is responsible for the crimes. The trial will continue next week. Nicola McCally, STV News.
Other stories across Scotland, and a warrant has been issued for the arrest of ex-Celtic striker Anthony Stokes after he failed to appear at court. The 34-year-old, who also played for Hibs and Livingston, had been due at Hamilton Sheriff Court this morning for sentencing after pleading guilty to stalking his ex-girlfriend.
The public have been warned to watch out for a rare leatherback turtle which could pose a hazard to boats. The animal, thought to be around 2 metres in size, was spotted in Loch Long. The Navy says the turtle could damage smaller vessels.
Rates of COVID-19 in Scotland have increased for the second week in a row. Around 1 in 45 people had the virus in the week to September the 5th. That's up from 1 in 50 the week before. Now, with inflation at a 40-year high and energy prices skyrocketing, many are facing not just a cost of living crisis, but a cost of existing crisis. That's according to charities.
The Ridge in Dunbar is hosting its first ever Recovery Festival to help tackle the stigma around addiction. Our reporter Laura Alderman has been finding out more.
Sam's life now couldn't be more different from the world he knew just a few years ago. The former electrical engineer became hooked on prescription drugs and heroin. Suddenly, he was living on the streets, his life spiralling out of control.
You're using to survive, because without using you can't do anything. You can't eat, you can't sleep, you can't go anywhere. It just controls your whole life. It got to a point when I was injecting drugs and I was spending an hour just looking for a vein to inject in, and I thought this has gone too far now. I had a brilliant job, a brilliant family, anything I could want, and but really it still happened to me.
With the help of his family, Sam overcame his addiction and is now a qualified social worker. He's starting a new job with charity The Ridge in Dunbar, who are this weekend hosting their first ever Festival of Recovery.
We've got loads of music, art, it's just a celebration of everybody and the talent that kind of is out there, and the fact that people put a lot of hard work into the recovery as well.
As the cost of living crisis worsens, the charity say more people are using drugs and alcohol as a coping mechanism.
The people that we worked with over the years, they've been in a cost of living crisis. Now this is moving them into a cost of existing crisis, and what's happening is that the rest of the community who maybe were just coping or just managing are being tipped into a much more vulnerable situation. So it's really scary.
Does anybody know the typical signs of an overdose if you've seen one?
There's also practical workshops like naloxone training, a medicine which reverses the effects of an overdose. Support like this is something Sam wishes he'd had on the long road to recovery.
It's difficult, and you can really feel like you're alone sometimes and that nobody is willing to give you the time of day. Never stop trying. Just stick in and you will get there.
Laura Alderman, STV News, Dunbar.
In recent years, Scotland has been praised for giving a warm welcome to refugees and asylum seekers. But with immigration policy restricting financial support and the freedom to work, it's still an isolating time for those hoping to settle here.
Now women from all over the world have joined forces in Glasgow to offer support and forge new community bonds. Kay Nicholson has more.
These women and children are picking vegetables they grew for a gardening project. It's much more than a small community event, providing not only sustenance but solidarity. A lifeline for Emran Sia, an asylum seeker from Cameroon.
It did not really help us to stay away from loneliness, sadness, boredom, solitude, but it also brought us out and help us to be very active, firstly, and then secondly, to be able to take control of our own life.
The Harvest event in Glasgow was part of Scotland's Dandelion Festival. It was put on by the Women's Integration Network, which meets at this venue once a week.
The Harvest at the end is about the sharing of food, which is a really lovely thing to be able to do, and to taste food that other people have made. Everybody can share food. And it's a really lovely way of coming together. And people took seeds home in pots and grew them, put them in their own little spaces that they might have had or their windowsills. For us, I suppose it's about welcome and being open.
And that's the wider aim of the network, which invites women of all backgrounds and cultures to learn skills, share experiences and build friendships. Olivia set it up after finding herself isolated.
I had no recourse to public fund. Had no support for housing. Tortured myself because I wasn't allowed to work. So I started calling it another form of slavery. But when I come here, I feel that big welcome. To me, it's about creating a sense of belonging. The women that come to the group, they know where they're going to go to when there's something happens. They don't feel alone. They're not going to sleep in bed and cover their head to say, I don't know where to go to, I don't know what to do, feeling so hopeless and having all these dark thoughts. We have a powerful voice. Let's use it.
And with support like this, there's a real community spirit for the women who are making Scotland their home. Kay Nicholson, STV News, Glasgow.
To sport, and Celtic manager Ange Postecoglou wants the club's supporters to be respectful when a minute's applause is held to mark the passing of Queen Elizabeth. With more on this and the rest of today's sport, here's Raman Bardwaj.
Ahead of Celtic's match against Shakhtar Donetsk on Wednesday, the club's supporters displayed anti-monarchy banners. This has resulted in UEFA opening disciplinary proceedings against the club. On Sunday, Ange Postecoglou takes his team to Paisley. St Mirren will hold a minute's applause as a mark of respect following the death of the Queen. The spotlight will be on the travelling support.
I have the same message to our fans that we always have, and we've always... as I said before the game, we abided by the protocols. We wore black armbands on Wednesday night. I think there's a minute's applause. We'll abide by whatever obligations we have and responsibilities we have as a football club. We'll do that in a respectful manner. We want our supporters to do the same.
I can only speak for us as a football club and myself. We'll be showing our utmost respects. We just hope everybody's respectful.
The remaining Premiership games take place tomorrow. Rangers host Dundee United, Hibernian welcome Aberdeen, Kilmarnock travel to Livingston, and St Johnstone host Ross County.
And finally, the public only rarely got a glimpse of the Queen's corgis throughout her reign, but when they did, her love for the dogs shone through.
Yes, the late monarch's affection for the breed stretched back to her childhood. She's responsible for their popularity in Scotland and for ensuring they're no longer an endangered breed, as Polly Bartlett's been finding out.
They're loyal, smart and playful, a companion fit for a queen. Whether accompanying her on a royal visit or hopping off the plane from Balmoral, wherever the Queen went, her faithful Pembroke corgis were always by her side.
They are so unique. They are so unique and different. They're individuals in every way, shape and form, but they're a family. We're all a family.
The Queen owned more than 30 in her lifetime. Her love for the breed began in childhood when her father brought home a corgi called Dookie.
For the millions of well-wishers that lined the routes of royal visits, a corgi was one sure way to catch the Queen's eye.
The amount of people that were just so happy to see them was astonishing, and the crowds that just came in. We even had the security guards inform us that little children were saying, "Are those the Queen's corgis?"
Thanks to Queen Elizabeth, the popularity of corgis has soared, and they're no longer an endangered breed.
The numbers of corgis out there are on the rise, and just everybody around the world recognises them, and wherever we go with them, they'll say, "Oh, are those the Queen's dogs?"
This four even have royal connections, having visited Balmoral and the Palace of Holyrood House.
One of ours, Eurus, one of her sisters, because she'd originally been owned by a member of the royal household, who had, for a short period of time, I think she'd had to go into hospital, and the Queen took her in for a couple of weeks.
Throughout her reign, this royal breed were, without a doubt, among the Queen's most loyal companions. Polly Bartlett, STV News, Edinburgh.
Oh, aren't they just lovely?
That's all from
all
us.
Time for tonight.
Thank you for watching. Good night.
Hello, this cool northerly breeze was really noticeable through the day and it brought with it a few showers. We've got low pressure over Scandinavia, high pressure building in from the west, and in between this cool breeze which has been bringing down some showers. Now most of those have been across northern and eastern areas. The breeze just begins to back as we go through tonight. So it looks like we'll still see some lines of showers coming into northern Scotland and the northwest, but eastern areas should be a little bit more sheltered. And then across western Scotland, it should be dry and clear, and we've got the light winds, so the temperatures fall away well down into single figures, and a few rural spots could even see some frost as we head into Saturday morning. So a chilly start, but many areas will be fine and bright, seeing good sunshine across southwestern Scotland. Again, we've got some of these showers heading into the far north, across the northeast, with a bit more cloud. But for a good part of Scotland, it looks dry and bright, and if you're in sheltered sunshine, it's not going to feel too bad at all. We could see temperatures perhaps up to around 15 or 16 at best, but for many, it's still feeling quite cool as we go through the day. On Sunday, that breeze beginning to ease down across the east coast. There will be more cloud around, but most areas look dry. And again, we could see some brighter skies coming through, and the temperatures up to around 17 Celsius for Glasgow. On Monday, again, a settled day across the United Kingdom. Looks like we'll see some damp weather edging in towards the northwest, but for many, there's temperatures in the mid-teens. Goodbye.